And welcome everybody to Norway Chess here on Chess Dojo. David checking in. How's everybody doing? Wow, 2 whole minutes of starting student screen. That's a lot for me. But, you know, it's important. It's important to make some phone calls now and then, talk to your people, talk to your family. We've got 2 games still going here in Norway Chess. One of them finished quickly. It was Magnus Carlsen's draw with somebody like Wei Yi. We could click through it really quickly if we wanted to, maybe. Not many pieces on the board, but 31 moves played. Opposite colored bishops. Let's see. Today Magnus had black, and Wei Yi told him, I would love to repeat your game with Hikaru from yesterday. And Magnus stopped and thought for 4 minutes. And to his credit, he did not try to repeat the game with Hikaru. I think Wei Yi, this was like a tacit draw offer. He was like, you gave Hikaru a draw yesterday. I'm willing to give you a draw today. And Magnus said, well, let's see. Let's maybe play a game. So some moves get played. I have no idea what this is about. Bishop 2 c5 from here. Okay. So that's quick opposite colored bishops. I never knew this trick that you could play knight e5 falling for queen d4 and then fork like this. I've never seen that trick before. Interesting. Interesting. Anyway, just a super fancy trade leading to a very, very equal looking position. Oh my god. Draw me now. Oh my god. Draw me now. Alright. Not much of a game. Yeah, definitely absolutely no ambition from Wei Yi there. Minimal ambition from Magnus. Let's get into the games with the ambitious Indians and the moderately ambitious Fabi. Let's see how these go. And I think Hikaru's being a little bit ambitious here as well today. Hikaru, yeah. So he's played this line, which is also kind of like a 4-knight Scotch combo line. Let me move this over here so I can see, just in case computer has any problems, at least I'll be able to see that it's dropping frames. Okay, so this is a famous variation, kind of like a Scotch into a 4 knights. You can also play the 4 knights and then play d4, e4, knight d4. So you can play either move order, Scotch, or 4 knights to get to this position. White gains ascendancy in the center for a moment by trading the d-pawn for black's e-pawn, but black immediately strikes at these 2 squares. The impact of the bishop sort of taking out this knight means that there's no good way for white to stop black from countering with d5 themselves. So they trade. d5 gets played. And here the age-old main line is pawn takes d5, bishop g5, c6, where black has split pawns but a little more center, and it's basically balanced. It's an interesting position that everybody should have played at least once in their lives, or seen some kind of top game in. But bishop g4 offering the sacrifice of this pawn after f3. This is a somewhat modern move. I've seen it played before. Bishop to g5, so white does not go for grabbing this pawn. Fair enough. Bishop g5. Black allows knight d5. And you can't go queen d4 takes d5 because of bishop h7. So the pawn looks like it's truly hung. I guess black's going to play queen b2. Let's see. Knight d5 does happen, and queen b2 does happen. Oh my gosh, we see Gukesh has an hour less on the clock than Hikaru. Up to here, they both played pretty quickly, it looks like. This opening phase here might have all been prep. Still rook b1, threatening to win the bishop on b4 We get a check to get one of the pieces out of the way. King h1, queen e5, defending the c7 pawn. Rook e1, taking the other open file. So here, black's got the bishop pair and white has both open files. Yes? Black counters one of the files. White threatens checkmate. And black, yeah, has to defend h7. That gets us opposite colored bishops. Interesting choice from Gukesh. Oh, by the way, the one move that he really thought on was this move, rook b8. Here he spent 30 minutes, probably looking at rook a b8, rook f e8. Maybe queen e7, bishop e7, rook e7 was worth a look as well. Because of white's back rank, you could then play rook b8 at the end of all that. And you won't necessarily lose that c7 pawn, right? You could play something like this here. But takes g4, gives the king a flight square. You come here, and white's going to trade. Man, you could lose your f-pawn too. I don't know. And then white starts taking pawns first. So he probably looked at this line for a while. Thanks, Oscar. I am. I hope you are too. So he probably looked at some lines around this queen e7, which looks like, you know, there's a chance it would be a dead draw, and there's a chance that white would be better. So he probably cranked through that for a while and finally played rook b8. So we got this trade. What's more natural, FG or HG? To me, probably HG. Yeah, so I find FG just like a mild surprise here. We get a rook trade, and now g3, starting to take control of some dark squares with the pawns against these pieces here. So this position here, Hikaru playing the whole game really quickly. The only move he seems to have thought of, and even that less than 10 minutes, was queen e4, deciding to force this opposite-colored bishop situation. So this position here, if the queens were off the board, it would be a dead draw, right? But with the queens on the board, it's very, very dangerous. Super sharp. Like if you were playing in a tournament game and you were 200 points higher rated than your opponent, you would love to have a position like this as white or as black, actually, because these opposite colored bishop middle games are super sharp, super dangerous, super calculation based, very, very tricky to play. Oh, that's awesome, Oscar Chess. Having fun, OTB. Good for you. Sorry, my phone's beeping away. Anything critical here? Some email. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't seem like anything too critical here. Yeah, we're going to ignore all that. Sorry, folks. All right, so basically the target is the king. There's a fair amount of calculation involved. Very tricky to play for both sides. Gukesh thought for 14 plus minutes here on rook f8. His first big think after the exchange. But honestly, even after thinking 29 minutes on rook b8, after queen e4, he thought 4 minutes before stopping mate in 1. What was he thinking about? There's only one move here that doesn't get mated, basically. Is there queen h6? I mean, that's ludicrous. You can't think 30 minutes, your opponent threatens mate in 1, and you're like, oh shoot, better come up with something. And there's only one thing to come up with. He hesitates on the recapture for 2 minutes. Oh, he's just playing really slowly today for a relatively simple position up to this point that will eventually be very complicated. Here he thought 25 minutes to retreat the bishop after 14 minutes on rook f8. What are you doing, buddy? And he's back in the tank after f4. So Hikaru's created a spot to hide the king on a light square, surrounded by a dark square pawn structure that'll keep this bishop and this rook away. So he can let the queen in, and it won't be anything like a perpetual. It'll just move out of the way. At the same time, his plan is to play h5, crack the light squares, get to the black king. So it's looking very dangerous for black at the moment. We're going to say +1 for now until we get more calibrated. Skibix, I think the idea is just to play h5 basically at some point. I think that's a pretty easy plan for white to do something, is just to play h5 at some point. So I guess we could start asking, is it already threatened, right? Like, black also needs a move. I don't know what move they're playing. But let's say black played check. You know, king here. Okay, he's just played queen f5 after another 11 to 12 minutes. So you couldn't really play h5 because of queen h5. So Hikaru would still have to do something, right? He would have to play something like rook e5, maybe, Skibix. So I could imagine something like he put the queen here. Oh, but now you can't play rook e5 because the queen can take it. So you have to find some other square for your queen, like this. Black wants to mark time. They don't have a lot of moves to mark time. So you can do something like this and this. I guess this is basically what black's doing, right? Just moving the queen around in the middle of the board. Seems generally defensible, right? I'm not making any obvious breakthrough for white, as long as black just keeps following us around with the queen. It is quite remarkable, is it not, Ashkill? We have never seen someone score so many points from such bad positions at this level. Never, I don't think. This is a very, very remarkable tournament. Maybe once in a lifetime, or maybe a new profile for Gukesh. So queen f5 was the choice. Obviously, a queen trade is very close to a draw. So white's going to move the queen away somewhere. And then Gukesh is just going to shuffle his queen around on different squares in the middle of the board, I think. Yeah. So say like queen e7. He'll have to go queen c5. Here's a little blunder for you all just to keep everybody on their toes. Right? So if queen e7, I think the plan would be to come over here, defend the rook in that direction with the bishop as backup. And then, you know, white has to keep bouncing around and you keep following her and she goes somewhere and I don't know. I don't know if she can ever really get somewhere where she can get to work easily. From here, you could play h5 as white. So maybe black goes back to here, preparing h5, queen h5. Seems fine. Black can also harass the king here, just see if white cares to put the king somewhere. I guess as white, I should be careful about giving up this pawn. Maybe I've gone a little too aggressive for white here. All right, so that's the live position right there. You know what? I think black can kind of hold it together by chasing the white queen around. So I'm going to reduce my eval to like 0.7 something. Probably a super computer is just calling it equal, to be honest. Like, if anyone out there has spacebar on, don't confirm for us. We don't want to hear about the computer evals. We're here to not hear the computer evals. But I imagine that out in computer land, this is my guess, I imagine that out in computer land it just says 0.0 basically. The black queen just chases around the white queen in circles and white can never make any progress. In human terms, white's better and black's position is more difficult to play. So I'm going to leave a positive evaluation for white over there, okay? Reflecting my sense of a human evaluation and a human versus human difficulty of playing the position. It's a little bit more difficult to play as black. I'm not even factoring in Gukesh's time pressure, which is mild, but is there. And Hi Chess Gone Mad, yes, Gukesh won yesterday. Absolutely amazing, mind-boggling. One of the biggest turnarounds in a chess game at that level ever. I think I called it pretty accurately. I mean, I haven't reviewed it with a computer, but I'm pretty confident in how I called it as far as like approximately the size of the advantage I ascribed to Arjun and the remaining chances I ascribed to Gukesh. I was very clear that I couldn't yet beat him from Arjun's position. I could not yet see my way to a position where, it would be an automatic win for a 2700 level opponent. And yeah, Gukesh kept the game going pretty tight. Yes, Geebix, 1 hour is mild because you have to compare Gukesh's time not to Hikaru's time, because you're saying 1 hour. Gukesh has 27 minutes. Hikaru's time is more or less irrelevant here for assessing Gukesh's time trouble. Okay? Gukesh's time pressure is measured by 27 minutes to play the position that he has on the board here, right? The position he has on the board here is mildly difficult for black to play, but there's only strategically one or two things going on, right? White needs to play an h5 pawn break at some point. Any queen trade draws the game for black. The white king's pretty safe. The black king is in some danger. But like strategically, it's very clearly delineated what's going on. He doesn't have to assess, what's the best square for this piece? Should I do this maneuver or that maneuver? There's nothing like that to think about. It's just some calculations. I think 27 minutes is enough for the task before him. So if you want a prediction right now, I think Gukesh can do it. I don't like how slowly he's played up to this point. And if he spends 10 minutes on his next move again, then at some point I'm going to be shaking my head and having a heart attack. But my sense right now is that the position is defensible and that he has the time he needs to play the position. So it doesn't matter how much time Hikaru has. Hikaru's playing extremely quickly, folks. He's played 25 moves in like 25 minutes or 28 minutes, So he's played extremely quickly. That has nothing to do with whether Gukesh has enough time. I cannot play with you right now, Cosmic Drug. I'm sorry. I am ocupado. You see, we're watching a game here between two of the best players in the world, two of the top 5 players in the world for sure, right? I think the top 5 players in the world right now are Magnus, Hikaru, Fabi, Gukesh, and Arjun, right? And 4 of the 5 top players in the world are playing right now, and they're in this tournament. The 5th is also in this tournament, but he's already made a draw today, so we're not watching him. So we're watching the best players in the world, in the entire world right now, Cosmic Drug. And, the people who are here right now with us are interested in watching them, not watching you and me. So you and I can play some other day when it won't be a letdown to those who want to watch Gukesh and Naka and Arjun and Fabi. Okay, so I've given my assessment on this board over here with Gukesh and Hikaru. And now we're going to take a quick look below us at probably an even more interesting and complicated position between Arjun and Fabi. It's also opposite colored bishops, but there's an extra knight for each side, which adds quite a bit of dynamism. Knights are a very special piece. They give us a lot of the excitement in chess, because they do different things. All the other pieces are like geometrical, and the knights are like these hoppy wild cards. Not to deliberately dumb down what I'm saying or sound like I'm silly or something like that, but the knights, they kind of break the straightforward clash that chess might otherwise be, right? Where pieces sort of run into each other and trade each other a lot. All right. So, looks like black may have played a Tarrasch defense. What do you think? Fabi might have played a Tarrasch defense here. And Arjun play like a G3 system against a Tarrasch. Let's have a look. Oh no. Ragozin. And then the Tarrasch move C5. So white's got the dark square bishop for free out of this opening. I mean, they spent a tempo on A3, but it seems like somehow white's not behind in development, so black must have lost a tempo somewhere as well. Oh, maybe moving the knight twice. So white's basically just playing with the bishop pair. I would have assessed this position at around move 11 as being just slightly pleasant for Arjun. But what Fabi has going for him is very free piece development, right? So the game's relatively easy to play for black, even at the beginning, the opening phase. You're not agonizing about getting a foothold in the center or developing all your pieces. It's a little bit easy to play. You know you've got free play. You know there are some ways in which you're going to be a little bit worse, but you have to keep making sure that you've got some good squares in the center for your knights and just stay active. I think both players could have been satisfied with the opening at this point. If I just make a guess, it looks like up to this point, Arjun had played more or less instantly. This is very similar to the line he played with white against Gukesh last week, which was tremendous and led to a crushing win for him. So Fabi could have guessed that this kind of line could come up, but I still see he was spending a few minutes on every single move here. So I don't know what was up with his prep or not prep. It's a little bit weird because this is sort of like an obvious variation for Arjun to simply repeat what he played against Gukesh earlier in the same tournament. You would think Fabi would blitz something out. I don't know why he didn't. But anyway, we get here. Here, Fabi took a big think, 22 minutes, and decided no knight trade. He's going to go to the light squares with his knights. Big decision from Arjun. He only spent 30 seconds on it. Wow. So he transitions from bishop pair to opposite colored bishops. I guess he'd already looked on his previous moves. He'd thought for some minutes already, and he'd already understood maybe that it was going to be a necessity because of the pressure against the c-pawn. One of the surprising moves from Arjun this game is knight takes d4 instead of the more structurally based c takes d4, keeping a perfect structure. That's a slightly surprising move to me. He played it in 10 seconds, so I think it was still part of his plans. So he just gives the bishop pair there. And then he's playing technical. Okay, he's unleashing a threat on d5 and a threat on e4, so he gets his pawn structure mildly improved. And now here's the position where he's thinking. Fabi thought quite a while here whether to take with the rook or the pawn, apparently. And then again, whether or not to trade the rooks here. Obvious move is bishop d4. Maybe the calculation with bishop a7, b6 is complicated, maybe? 26 minutes Arjun spent on this. So that was a big deal for him. Bishop d4 comes in. Have I missed any moves over here? No, not yet. Bishop d4. I mean, do we think bishop a7 was close? Could that be something he spent a long time thinking about? Because that's one pawn. That's two pawns. And then how straightforward or messy is the position that obtains here? I don't really want to move off of the file. I think something like rook f5, queen e7 is just going to drop the bishop. So I got to do something more critical maybe. We'll defend the knight. Here for black we could go knight e5. Go queen e7. See, this is a very, very long, kind of very hard to calculate variation. Lots of possible moves along the way. Even though everything of white's is hanging, there's a very good chance that white emerges in a winning bishop versus knight endgame here, with bishop takes b6 at some point and one b pawn left on the queen side. Right? So this line I may have just lost for black, and this is the kind of line that would be tempting as white that would make you spend a lot of time calculating bishop a7. b6 takes here, here. Lots of moves possible. What else could we try here? We could try queen e7 and then I go queen e4, right? If black takes here, I can take this. Knight e5 made some sense. Rook f4 was a sad little move. Knight f3 check. I was going to play king g2 and then this move wins, so that doesn't work. King h1 then. Queen c6. Play the same queen e4 move now. The knight looks so dead, I think black might have to trade queens here. Maybe there's also knight e5. Knight e5, bishop b6. This position looks very risky for black. Queen takes c3 instead of queen c6. Oh, right. Once I didn't put the king on g2. I'd originally looked at king g2, blundering knight e1. But once I put the king on h1, you could play queen c3 and defend the knight there. Then we'd go here, here, here. Now you see why somebody would have to calculate this as white until they found a refutation for black. Because if this works, it works. You know, there's no reason to assume that this can't work for white. It totally could. This could be just game winning, basically. Bishop a7, if they don't play b6, then you're up a pawn, right? If they do play b6, they're risking 2 pawns. So now if they don't trap your bishop, you're generally going to be winning the game. So yeah, my first suspicion is that bishop a7 cost Arjun a lot of effort. Just, you know, chess is move by move. You can't reject bishop a7 at this level because b6 looks risky. You have to look if you're winning, drawing, losing, or slightly better in an endgame, you know, and then assess if you want to do it. By the way, from the very first move, black can also play this way, not aiming at the king side, simply trying to solidify the knight and then play queen here and trap this piece. But here as well, I think there's a fair degree of complication to the following kind of variation. Right? White gives an exchange and then keeps this piece. And I think in this particular variation, queen b4 might basically just solve it as a draw. but yeah, there's a whole other direction to look at with bishop e6. And yeah, I don't know what all white might have as resources in this line. Here I would think there's another candidate move, queen d3, and another one maybe even queen a4, although I'm not sure about rook a8 might end it. But queen d3, we've got rook d8, h6 stops knight g5 as well, which is a good idea. Yeah, maybe that's the end of that. Okay, so after 26 minutes, Arjun settled for bishop d4. Fabi has not yet responded to that. We do have a move on the other board to update, but what's my general sense of this position? It's slightly better for white, right? Because of black's pawn structure being split. But a lot of it's going to hinge again on the activity of the opposite colored bishops. White's looks pretty amazing right now. Yeah, so Arjun has a bit of an edge. So bishop a7 would really be only something you play if it's extremely good. Otherwise, you'd settle for this and continue pressing the opponent. Queen's got to move somewhere. Probably doesn't want to allow knight g5, so it could be queen f5. Queen h6. Queen e7. Yeah, white's just going to be a tiny bit better for now, but it's not clear how much. Let's see what's happened here. Hikaru moves the queen away, and the queen could go back to c5, but played to f6. I don't know, DG. I don't know. I have this video that I opened up that I wanted to watch.
Hi, Magnus.
Let's see if you guys can hear it too. Let me put it on. Okay.
Preferred to play rapid blitz chess today, right?
Yeah.
Understandably. And hi, Magnus. Preferred to play rapid blitz chess today, right?
Yeah.
Understandably. And I just heard that, you know, the possibility of playing more classical chess, you're sort of thinking whether you want to continue that or concentrate on 960 or blitz in future.
The thing is that, you know, losses are painful, like no matter what, but at least if I can lose, like doing something that I really enjoy, then that's much easier. Like I don't have any, it's not that I cannot play, it's just situations like yesterday, like I'm just wondering, like, why am I doing this? Like, what's the point? But you know, I will do my best in the last 3 games here. Then we'll see, I suppose.
Guess there's a lot of pain being a top sportsman. And I've seen you play a lot of golf. Hopefully you'll be able to get a round in now or 2 to relax.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's good to do something to get my mind off of the games, and when the games start at 5, then I have some time to do that and get some lunch with my wife and everything. So that's nice.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Get wieners.
Okay. So, DG asked what's going on with Magnus. I had that video queued up. I wanted to watch it later on my own, but why not watch it with you all? I think you could hear what he was saying in that interview. I'll tell you something interesting that you couldn't hear from it, but that I could see, is that Ginger GM, Simon Williams, who was interviewing him, did not look Magnus in the eyes or didn't even look at Magnus during the interview. Magnus was here and he was like this the whole time. And I don't know that that's a normal thing for Simon, that he doesn't like to look at people. I think that it might be he was so uncomfortable with how much pain Magnus is in that he couldn't bear to look at Magnus at that moment. So I think you hear what's going on there. Magnus just doesn't even want to play classical chess. That's what happened yesterday with Hikaru. And it's just so painful for him right now. He's just suffering. I think in this case, he's not suffering because of opening prep, like with the World Championship preparation. Obviously, he didn't have to do special opening preparation for this tournament, and he didn't have any problems with his opening preparation. It's not like Gukesh won the game by out-preparing him, and he's like, oh, what's the point? Somebody else is spending more time pressing spacebar than me. I think the what's the point doesn't refer to even to like the prep for classical chess. Honestly, it could apply to chess 960 or anything. What's the point? Magnus is maybe tired of playing chess after all these years. No, Simon was not reading questions, MG Weirdo. Not that I could see. I think he was thinking of the questions himself. Sorry, there's a really beautiful hummingbird right outside my window, which is distracting. What a beauty. But yeah, I mean, it's just pure, like, he's not enjoying it. And most really serious chess players that I know have gone through at least one, if not many, phases where they didn't enjoy playing chess, which is a really, really weird thing, right? Because all of them have also gone through a phase in their life where they were in love with chess, and if you had told them that one day they could be a master, or that one day they could be a professional chess player, they would have said, I've got no other questions about my future. You know, that is just the greatest thing that could ever be. I'm so happy to know that I will be so blessed, right? And that's what they thought as a kid who loved chess, that there could be nothing better than to get to be a professional chess player. And honestly, the little kid was fairly correct. But then you get so wrapped up in your ego and, you know, the pain of losing a game and this and that. Everybody finds some negative something at some point, and they can construct for themselves a hell out of what is actually a paradise. I mean, he's traveling around the world to cool locations, playing one of the greatest games ever invented. And, hanging out with other really cool people. Like, being a chess pro, I can tell you, is objectively as amazing as the little kid versions of ourselves dream and imagine it to be. And we just fall into these weird pits because of ego, because for most people, and there's different reasons for different people, and there might be somebody who's never suffered playing chess, but most people I know have at some point. We get some idea of how good or how great we want to be or should be compared to other people, and then we just can't be happy anymore. I'm glad to hear that, Chess Gone Mad. Chess Gone Mad over on YouTube saying, Fabi said he couldn't look at chess for a year a while ago. I'm not happy to hear that because that's bad for Fabi, right? I'm happy to hear that because I'm glad that Fabi said, who's somebody that, many people have listened to, that he said something so important and so honest about it. It's really great for the top players to be honest about some of this stuff. And then we can all heal a bit, So, I remember, the phase in my life where I was going to chess tournaments and not enjoying it. Crazy. I remember it. So that's where Magnus is right now. That's the short answer. He's probably not even enjoying the rapid games, but the faster he can get the classical games done with, the faster he can get the rapid games done with, the more time he can spend on something else, taking his mind off of the fact that he doesn't enjoy his job right now. But he's going to have to either, switch jobs or recalibrate and understand how good a job he has. Isn't he expecting a child? I don't mean to gossip or anything, but I feel like I heard the news that he might be expecting a child. That would be a whole different phase for him and a different job that would be available. He could spend a couple of years raising one or more children. It's a very difficult but important job and quite interesting, quite different. Yeah. Evan confirming that they've announced a pregnancy, so I'm not just like gossiping about whispers in the hallways, you know. That'd be cool. Maybe he'll take a break. I would recommend it, honestly. I mean, Magnus, you know, he's played 20 years of chess tournaments. Now's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to be there and be present with a baby. It's a miraculous thing how humans are created. So maybe just hang out and live with that for a while. So Hikaru strengthens his position a little bit more with the rook to the 5th rank. This takes away c5 from black's queen and opens up possibilities of h5. Black plays queen d6. It feels like Gukesh has actually been outmaneuvered just in the last 2 moves. I don't know why in this position here he played queen f6 instead of queen c5, continuing to pursue the queen and not giving white time for rook e5. I definitely don't understand it. Queen f6, rook e5, queen d6. Feels like he's been outmaneuvered, but I guess the question is, how strong is h5 right now? That's what we're going to have to check on. And by the way, Undefining telling us they're playing their first open tournament this weekend with 2 games a day. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be nervous. It's going to be jittery. It's going to be intense. It's going to be a lot of things. Undefining. Enjoy it. Try to enjoy it and go into it with some kind of a goal. I recommend. The goal could be to enjoy it. The goal could be to remember it. The goal could be to make a chess friend. You know, you don't need some goal like you're trying to win a million games and become a miserable professional player, you know. But it's nice to have the focus of some kind of a goal when you go to chess tournaments. That's my number 1 tip for chess tournaments. Okay, Hikaru played c3 here, taking away a square from the queen. Unrooting the bishop, but it's hard to ever even threaten the bishop because of back rank checkmate. And it's hard to ever get rid of back rank checkmate because of, you know, the weakness of the g6 pawn. Oh, those are 2 really good goals, Undefining. Yeah, that should keep you focused. Trying to learn some things about the structures and openings, the structures that come from your openings, and then trying to take care of your pieces and not blunder any of them. Do you normally blunder pieces when you play a game? Like, how often do you feel like you blunder a piece during a game? I ask this to get at how realistic is your goal to not blunder any pieces. Because all of us would like to not blunder any pieces, right? But we have to have a goal that's reasonable for ourselves. So based on your current skill level, you know, should your goal be to blunder no pieces or to blunder only 1 piece per move or to blunder only 1 piece per tournament? If you make sure it's achievable, you have a better chance of achieving it and being satisfied with yourself, you know? And also goals that are unrealistic are of minimal use in my own experience, because somewhere you know you can't really achieve the goal, somewhere in your heart of hearts, right? And so it doesn't really motivate you. What motivates you is something that you can actually do, right? Just like imagine giving math problems to a child or an adult. If you give them problems that they have no hope of solving, they will work less hard on them. If you give them problems that they know they can easily solve, they will work less hard on them. This is on average. Obviously, people are different. But the sweet spot is you give them problems where they've got like a chance to solve it, but they're not 100% sure they can solve it. You know, it's like a difficult level for them. That's when most people will work the hardest. So okay. Seems fine, Fluent. Seems fine, Undefining. Sounds like you can go for that goal. Not flat out hang any pieces at your tournament. And I guess since it's your first time playing 2 games a day, if you want to achieve that goal, you'll have to pay attention to getting tired in the second round each day, right? That's going to be when you're at the greatest risk of dropping a piece. It's going to be in that second game each day as you get tired. Hey, LJL Chess. We got an interesting battle here between Hikaru and Gukesh, and then another one over here between Arjun and Fabi. Fabi in a bit more time trouble than Gukesh. Do you guys follow that by looking at it? Because it's not about how much time your opponent has. It's about how much time you have for how complicated the position is. And Fabi's position is more complicated than Gukesh's position. So he's definitely under some pressure here. Goes for Queen A6. So he's got the idea of maybe Bishop or Queen to A4 to simplify here. Sicilians and kids. Yeah, so you're playing a style of chess that's supposed to put more pressure on yourself and your opponent to blunder. Right, Undefining? Unless you're not self-aware about that element. But in general, if you're playing like Kasparov, in terms of your opening selections and your intensity, the idea is to get more blunders from your opponent, but also from yourself. Just that you're going to get more blunders out of your opponent, so it's going to make up for the blunders you make. It's not to play perfect chess. So that's the kind of chess that interests you. Then honestly, I don't mean to, knock your life upside down at the last moment. But I don't like the goal of not blundering any pieces matched with playing a style of chess that's designed to elicit blunders from both you and your opponent, but hopefully more from them. To me, to maximize the complications and then say your goal is to not blunder anything, I don't like it. I think it should be more about trying to find a couple really good moves. You know what I mean? To sometimes find a really difficult move in a critical moment. I think it's more about getting it right sometimes than about never getting it wrong when you play when you play for that kind of intensity. You know? Like, what if your goal were, I want to find one brilliant move each game, instead of I want to never blunder? Doesn't that match what you're doing a little bit better as a goal? By the way, down on this board here, folks, because the queen is protected, bishop a4 is actually a threat, right? Because if white pinned the bishop, you could take the queen, they take your queen, and when you take back, you're up a rook. And similarly, bishop a4, queen a2, you could just take the rook because your queen's protected. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. You're not saying like you're not going to miss any 2-move tactic or 3-move tactic. You just want to not play any moves that look like, queen f5 transferring to the king side and your opponent takes. And I understand that's a more doable goal than the other one. But do you see what I'm saying about like the complication chess versus not blundering, or the complication chess with trying to find good moves? Doesn't my goal make more sense? No? LJL Chess says, forget about pawn to h5. Let's look at rook to h5 for Hikaru. Is that right, LJL Chess? Right here, that's what you're looking at? Hikaru's played king h3, by the way, just now. But you're wondering if he could have gone straight here? What's the point after pawn takes rook? I think maybe you need your queen on e4 before you play rook h5, yeah? Okay. So some want to play queen e4 to prepare that. Maybe we should see how viable that is. Let's just allow it, put it on the board, see what we think. I have a move that might defend. Against queen g6, I want to play queen d3 and defend h7 with the queen. I'm almost mated, but I'm not, right? What about here? I am mated, huh? So this can't be done. See if there's any other defense. So queen g6. Here's a simple defensive move. So here I'm stopping rook h7, king h7 for sure, just by having the queen here. And now queen g6 is just winning back a pawn that you just sacked on the queen side, right? We go to opposite colored bishop ending and, well, black should be okay. They're still a little bit worse, by the way, but they should be okay. Pawn to GM also points out, you know, black could take a pawn with check here. But I'm not sure what we do then. You play this ultra ugly move, protecting h7 that prevents rook h5, and then after bishop c4, hilariously, you've trapped your queen on the light squares and you lose. Rook f7, rook e8. That's just horrific. So queen e4, personally I think this queen c3 defense was pretty reasonable with queen c3, queen f6. That'd be my take. So king h3, tucking the king in advance. Gukesh doesn't have a lot of useful moves here while waiting around. I don't really love putting his queen further and further into the corner because of this, right? And here and here. Maybe it comes out about the same though. Maybe he doesn't mind. On the other board, I think Arjun moved. Let's see, knight g5. I warned you, Fabi. I said he wanted to play this move. 21 minutes. And now Fabi's thinking. So I had seen queen a6, but I didn't mention it in chat, right? The three moves I mentioned earlier were these three moves, all moves that stop knight g5. So he plays queen a6, knight g5 happens. Now, what does he have to do? Queen g6? Queen g6, I would have the awful feeling that white could trade queens and grab the a7 pawn. Yeah. I definitely think that there's a very strong chance white can get away with bishop a7. Oh, we got a move here already? Queen h6 was played. Yeah, so he went back over with the queen. He avoided the queen trade. Here he attacks the knight, so there's no time for bishop a7. But Arjun quickly, h4. He's planned something. Show us your strength, Arjun. Show us your strength. 20 minutes on knight g5. You're going to have a sequence prepared. I know you. So you're going to come here. Now, let's say black played b6. What would white's next step be? By the way, I'm defining whether or not you blunder. You're going to play multiple games, 2 games a day. You don't need every single game to maximize what you can learn from it. You're going to have some games that are going to be worthy of study afterwards. H4. All right, Gukesh finally played something. He just came back where he was from. Yeah, queen d6. Worrisome. Worrisome for Gukesh. He's like continuing to burn time. I mean, 8 minutes per move just doing not just shuffling. Very, very concerning. Very concerning. I mean, it's fine to shuffle, but then you need to shuffle quickly. It's fine to think, but then you need to do something that advances the game. If you think a ton and shuffle, I mean, you're just headed towards death on the clock. That's not a great move. 8 minutes to go back to where you came from. I hate that. I hate that. And the question is now h5, right? So this is a pretty big threat. Hikaru played king g2, repeating positions. Come on, play quickly for one move, Gukesh. Thank you. We get a very critical move from Fabi. f6. It blunts this bishop, right? It blunts this bishop. But what is Her Majesty doing over there now? She can get back into the game through this diagonal, through like queen g6 or something, but knight f3 quickly, a6 quickly. Yeah, had to spend a tempo on that pawn. My instinct would have been b6, not a6. Very strong instinct to play b6 instead of a6 there. But, you know, they're calculating tons of variations, which are going to trump intuition. Now maybe bishop here. Is black then going to play b6 in response to that? Yeah, maybe I didn't worry about rook a1 enough, Oscar. But I guess I even thought that black could play a5. You know, make a pass pawn. It can walk all the way to a3. a6. So white wants to open the center before the black queen gets back into the game. Can white play e4? The first line I started calculating was bishop c5, opening up this threat. But then b6, rook takes d5, idea bishop c6, rook d4. There's bishop e6, and we can't go to d6 because of the knight. All the black pieces get defended, and I sack a piece, which I don't want to sack a piece. So that gives me the idea, maybe the main thing we want to do is e4. Can we play this? But after bishop g4, there's a good chance that that's blundering, right? Knight e1 was played by Arjun. This knight has two possible destinations, but when it goes to d3, of course, black will have the option of bishop f5, getting rid of it. So maybe it'll go through g2 just to try to get to f4. Less flexible than knight d3, but less stoppable as well. This knight does want to be on a dark square, for sure, right? So these are kind of the squares you would want it to be on if you think about it diagrammatically. You know, sometimes you look at a position like this, you say, okay, my knight's not well placed. What's the best square on the board for it? Generally, when someone plays f6, you know, f4 becomes the best square instead of f3. On top of that, we've got this light squared bishop, so the knight's always been better off on a dark square than a light square. So the bishop can't attack it, but it can attack the bishop. It can take squares away from the bishop, right? My whole idea of bishop c5, rook d5 would be much better with a knight on f4. One question is there any way Fabi can play g5? Sorry, knight e1. Is there any way Fabi can play g5 to keep the knight off of f4? But g5, weakening this f6 pawn and this king, seems a little hard to believe. So my instinct there is going to be no, that he won't want to do that. Also, white's king generally has a bit more pawn cover than black's king. So pawn trades on the king side are going to hurt the black king more than the white king. Knight e1 to g2 to f4 looks like a fabulous idea from Arjun. Like just what the position ordered strategically. Fabi's under some pressure, just as Gukesh is. Both players with black under pressure here today. Take a moment to work on my breakfast while the players ponder. It's been a great tournament this year, hasn't it? This Norway Chess. Been pretty good, huh? I mean, sad to see Magnus coming off the rails a little bit, you know, and being unhappy. I never wish misery on any of these guys. Certainly not on my favorites of them. Maybe cheaters and those who support wars, I wouldn't mind so much if they weren't enjoying their chess tournaments. That's a very small number. Almost all the top chess players, I'm a fan of them. I'm a fan of most of the top chess players. So, very sad to see Magnus suffering, but it is a part of professional chess. They all have times where they suffer, unfortunately. By the way, it does not feel, from that one little clip that we watched of him being interviewed by Ginger GM, it does not feel like Magnus is going to pull it together in the next 3 days and play any great classical games. It sounds like he's going to try and, phone it in the classical games at least. Get draws and maybe try to win the Armageddons, but there's only so much you can do in terms of generating motivation in 2 or 3 days when you're miserable. It's really hard when your heart is just elsewhere. And I know to some degree these top players are built differently than us psychologically. Most of them probably have, pretty special configurations. Magnus throughout his career was great at bouncing back from losses, which is part of why yesterday's non-game with Hikaru surprised me. Because in the past he's bounced back so much, but he bounced back because he was hungry, because he was motivated. A loss was just fuel to get better. And now it seems like this week at least, a loss is just pain. It's just pain. And just asking himself, why am I even here if I don't enjoy it? Which is the right question to ask. It's the right question to ask. But from my own experience, it's probably going to take a while to figure it out. Just to mention that for myself, I started not enjoying chess tournaments. And then how long did it take for me to figure out the problem? I think between 3 and 4 years. It took me 3 to 4 years to figure out what was going on with myself and make appropriate changes. So, obviously, when I figured it out, I thought to one of the first things I thought was, how could it have taken me 3 or 4 years to figure this out? If I had been doing a profile on myself as like an opponent, I would have figured out what had happened in half an hour, just playing through my games and looking at my career. I could have made a profile and figured it out in half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. Instead, it took 3 or 4 years. So I was pretty disappointed when I realized it. Like, wow, that was terribly slow, and you should have figured this out long ago. Would have saved you a lot of suffering, and replaced that suffering with a lot of positive stuff. Despite that, I'm going to say, for someone to figure it out in 3 or 4 days would be a big surprise to me. So I think Magnus is going to suffer for the rest of Norway Chess at least. Wow, Arjun goes through D3. So he doesn't care about bishop F5? Fabi didn't play bishop F5 either. He played rook E8. What's wrong with bishop F5? Queen could come here, dreaming of the middle of the board. You have to take it. If you play bishop F5, you have to take the knight, right? You can't play bishop F5, then let the knight keep bouncing. So this here is good for white. Tactically, knight b2 doesn't work. Knight e4, more normal and centralizical. We almost have to take it. Come in here anyway. Queen c6 covering everything. Draw. Is there a way I could not take this? I think Baymon's looking at queen d5 for Hikaru over on this board here. But maybe we should just sit down on that board for a moment and calculate some h5. I've just been finding the Aragaisi Caruana game a little, like just a touch more interesting. Rook e8. What else would be the plan here? Rook takes. Looks pretty solid for black. No, I definitely do not understand this. I do not understand why both of these players don't think black wants to trade this bad bishop for this good knight. I am absolutely slamboozle, floored, and confused. So, I don't know if this qualifies as excellent analysis, honest doubter, but I cannot begin to guess why white allows bishop f5 and black doesn't go for it. I just don't understand. Is there something for white in that variation chess gone mad? Hey, Opfeshach, how are you? Does white have something here that I missed the first time around? This was as far as I looked last time. And this is where I stopped. And assumed that white had nothing. Black does look a little bit loose before the queen comes to c6. That's why I played queen a4, but I don't see any reason black would be worse here. I do a Fashach, yeah. I didn't know Renek's birthday. But happy birthday to you, Renek, wherever you are these days. Yeah, I can't see anything. I can't explain why the game went the way it did. After rook e8, Arjun plays queen c1, leaving this pawn hanging. There's sort of a baby tactic here of knight f4. What? What happened, Opfeshach? No, Fabi's still thinking in this game here. Sorry, folks, I'm reading for a minute here. Man. Awful news. Man. Really? Reminds you don't know what's going on in everybody else's life, huh? Oh. So Fabi is obliged to play b6 anyway eventually to stop knight c5. So I feel like it would have been better with the pawn on a7, but not a big deal maybe. And now the knight can come to f4. Arjun still naggingly better over there. I don't think that evaluation has changed. Hikaru played king h3, queen d6, repeating. And then queen e4, bishop c5, king g2. Queen b6. I don't know what they're up to on this board. Hi, Nemtomi. Somebody over in our Twitch chat shared that an old-time dojoer died. We don't know how, but I was just reading their obituary and feeling sad. That makes sense, Opfashach. Yeah. I don't know to what extent people gave him a hard time, Hockey Chess Dude. I think there's probably some extent to which anything Magnus does is under a microscope, right? As such a big famous person. But maybe I don't read the right places, but I haven't seen anything too critical about it. He and Gukesh had good things to say about each other. And it was certainly a 1 in a million frustrating blunder for Magnus. All right, well, I need to understand something about this Gukesh game. Is he trying to threaten queen b2, queen c3 here? What is happening? So king h3. What happens if white plays h5 here? Like, what is going on? I mean, let's say white just achieves the h5 pawn break. What does that mean for the game? Still seems like black's kind of under the gun. Hey, Benedict. Oh, Benedict and Chess Gone Mad. You guys are on at the same time. But one of you's on YouTube and one of you's on Twitch. Have you ever played together? Or sparred together or anything together? Do you know each other, Chess Gone Mad and Benedict? I wanted to connect the two of you. He just did. Okay, perfect. I had a great sparring session with Chess Gone Mad a week ago, Benedict. I think that you guys would be very well matched. I don't see a reason for Hikaru not to play h5. Even last move, much less this move. Oh, why not rook h5? Yeah, we looked at rook h5 a bit before. Caesar, yes, you can beat an opponent who significantly outcalculates you. Of course. Even somebody who significantly outcalculates you might make a mistake on any given day, right? In calculation. Additionally, they could make mistaken evaluations, They could go into a rook ending thinking that it's drawn, but it's actually lost. They're just not so good at rook endings or whatever. I mean, if they outcalculate you, they're probably worse than you at something. And they repeat one more. Well, that's a shock, Arjun. Knight b2. That's a huge surprise. I thought that knight was going to be good on f4. He wants to trade this knight to worry black about the queenside pawns. I mean, from a perspective, it makes sense, and this wouldn't really be much of an idea with the black pawn still on a7. Right? But, because if black takes, and they have to defend this pawn on b6, because there's no pawn on a7, as well as dealing with the pawn on the a file. But I just thought knight f4 was nice. Man, I'm curious to review this later with the computer and just get some feedback on some of my positional concepts or evaluations. Hey Lumbra, how are you? Ooh, Baymon's calculating some long lines here. So, queen d5, c6. Oh, that had to be in another position, though, right? It couldn't be queen d5 here because this bishop would be hanging. I don't know that, Benedict. You know, I looked at h5 before, like on this move here, where he played queen e4. I looked at h5. Personally, I didn't see anything wrong with it. You know, I saw pawn takes, rook takes, g6, rook comes back into the middle of the board. As long as the bishop covers h1, it looks like the king's pretty safe. And black's still alive, but now there's this diagonal open, so white's going to want to try and get the rook to e7 or e6. Bully the queen in. Still looks scary. I don't know. They are at move... On Hikaru's board, they're at move 34. At move 40, they only get a 10-second increment. So getting to move 40 is not going to save them very much. They don't get an extra half hour or anything like that. So I don't understand very well what's going on either board, I guess I have to admit today. Not predicting the strategic currents very well. Even though the position seemed somewhat simple strategically to me, I thought that I understood what's going on. Maybe Hikaru knows that h5 doesn't crush black and that black can't stop it. So what he's doing is he's maneuvering as long as possible before playing h5 to let Gukesh run his clock down to 1 minute. You're just trying to make the game as long as possible for Gukesh to get the lowest possible on time before starting any decisive things. Gukesh is human, but also, you know, very, very strong and energetic. You don't necessarily get, like, fatigue mistakes out of him, but you can lull him to being too low on the clock and then give him a tough problem to solve and another tough problem to solve, and, you know, he could occasionally get something wrong. You're thinking h5, rook d8, right. Normally rook d8 doesn't even threaten queen d3 because of back rank mate. This was kind of what Baymon was looking at, was queen d5, c6. But yeah, I didn't understand Baymon queen d5 allowing queen takes c3 for black. I think you're totally right, Hockey Chess Dude. I think he has an incredible heart or, you know, spirit or whatever folks want to call it. Just a great wonderfulness about him. Bishop b5 played, so Fabi's going to maybe anchor the bishop here where it defends 2 pawns in this way, and where it attacks e2. Let's just confirm that he can capture on e2, shall we? Is that tactically a-okay? It is. Is white still better? Noticeably. But that might be closer to a draw with stuff taken off like... Oh, wow, they just played these moves. Arjun's going for all these trades. And Fabi takes with bishop, not rook. Very minimalist play from Arjun here. His advantage is quite small in this resulting position, I think. The main plan, I think, is to advance this h-pawn, as Chess Gone Mad mentioned, but queen d2, it's going to be bishop c4, and what does he even really have here? He's going to want the E file. Maybe he's going to play rook E3 and queen E1. Wow, we get queen H5 from black. That's a surprise. Fabi does not play the simplest move here. Maybe he wants to bring the bishop to F3. Forget about this. And just say your king is in bad shape. Yeah, I think he could get away with that. Who cares about the A pawn? You can never go take that with your queen and leave the king open. I would say Chess Gone Mad. I was just going to say now, like, I don't even know who's better anymore. You know, I don't even know who's better now that black's got bishop F3. I'm going to guess that the position's equal. Like, if white puts the queen on F4 or something, how does the black queen ever get into attack? I'm going to guess that it's equal between white's king being weak and black's pawns being slightly bad. Yeah. I think that game is equalized, which at least condemns the way that Arjun has played it. Queen D6, queen E4. This was all this back and forth. Okay, H5 was finally played by Hikaru. Check to the miserable king. And now he's going to play like bishop D6 or something instead of taking on H5. He does, bishop D6. You got one move right, Bruce, all day. All right, the rook doesn't even need to stay on the H5 pawn because there's checkmate on H7. What are you doing, Gookie? What are you doing? The rook could go here, for example, and you can't stop him from taking? What? Who thinks Gukesh is still going to save this game? Because I cannot understand what he's done. He somehow let white set this up, not challenged the queen for a trade. H5 hits, he can't even take it. What? Maybe here he could try to trade a rook for some survival chances, but down a full pawn for sure. Where else could he go? Here. Then rook F5. If rook F5 is your hope, why did you not play it last move? Because of check, I guess. Yeah, that's just terrible as well. Not even in his danger zone, says Chess Gone Mad. Okay. So what's the idea, Chess Gone Mad? And Hikaru's still thinking, but what's the idea for black? Like, after this rook moves to E6, what's even the next move for black? I mean, does black lose a pawn by force on G6 here? Let's just start by establishing something really basic. Is there any move for black that doesn't lose a pawn? Rook F5. You got no idea what to play, but you've seen his previous games. All right, I take. Take, and I take. That's a pound. Hikaru's played rook e6, like I was looking at. Rook e6. God. I don't want to be right about anything. Rook f6 played. That's what I had predicted for Gukesh. And then takes would be likely next, right? That looks really bad. Really bad. I'm dropping his eval major here. Sorry, it's got to be negative, right? No, positive. Hikaru's white. 1.2. Ay. That is bad. Arjun thinking after queen h5. Yeah, I don't know what you did with this game, Arjun, but I guess you're at that moment in your life where you're looking at the position and asking yourself, what did I do with this game? Rook e8 check played. So that's going to be rook f8. Maybe then he'll trade. Oh, that could be even worse. Oh. This is abysmal. This is abysmal. I don't know what Gukesh was doing. He spent tons of time and... Bishop f8. Oh. Oh, God. Oh, God. The brutality of this current situation cannot be overstated. Well, I guess if I put the evaluation at 6 instead of 1.2, that would be overstating it. But this looks horrendous. I mean, you're down a pawn. Your king's creaky. You've given up the back rank, so you're tied up. You've got no activity. Oh! My God. Like, for example, HG, king, I don't know, F2. And then just check. Here is the threat. Hikaru has somehow not gotten worse with age, Caesar, yeah. Well, I think he's gotten better and worse, you know? And that happens to everybody as they age. Parts of your game get better, parts of it get worse. In Hikaru's case, though, he's overall gotten better. I don't know if even Hikaru fully understands why. The best he could explain it to us when we had a chance to talk to him on the podcast was that he used to be worried too much when he played, too worried about his livelihood and his results and all that, and now he can play freely now that he's financially secure and matured a little bit about life. I hear you, Lumbra. We never know when we're going to be missing one important half move. But hey, if you got 6 half moves correct, you know, it's good that you didn't make mistakes on half moves 3, 4, and 5, right? I mean, Queen A8, introducing the idea of just winning this piece, okay? So he's saying that Gukesh is not just in a lost position, but that he's literally blundered queen a8 with bishop f8 instead of rook f8. So king here, bishop check will obviously force the king off of here. Queen f7, maybe the same move. No, there's queen g8 at the end, huh? But queen d6 looks more robust, yeah. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, Arjun's done something at least. Queen f4 after a million years. Rook e4, queen b8. So Baymon, I mean, yeah, if h takes g6, black should play h6, probably, right? To avoid this queen h1. But that doesn't mean that white can't do this. That's a full extra pawn locking in a back rank mate forever, right? So white could definitely consider doing this. Queen c6 already doesn't work because you can always trade and then take on f8. So once this happens, you know, there's like a lot of ways to restrict black from this position, right? You can go f5, bishop c4, queen d5, you know, and even win the endgame after the queen trade. Let me just show. Let's imagine black can move back and forth without any problems. We just go here, threatening checkmate. Takes, takes. I kept this pawn on the board to keep the king stuck. You can play anything other than rook f5 if you like. It doesn't matter what you do. I play this eventually in the endgame. Right? And there's no way out. So the pawn on g6, a pawn on g6 for white, it does block our checkmate on h7. But it's an extra pawn, and it's an extra pawn that's endangering the king. And I think you can eventually just break down these defenders pretty cleanly. Maybe I don't even need f5. Maybe I just go bishop c4, queen d5, and you resign. Because if you ever go rook g6, I take the bishop. It could be that simple. I mean, I don't see anything black could ever do here. Rook d8. Queen's got to stay on this piece. Queen c5. It's completely dead, though. I'm going to increase my number here. What happens if I say 5? Does that break our eval bar? I would put infinity, but it breaks our eval bar when you put infinity. So I would say basically a GM can't not win this. Like in this position, I would win against Gukesh, I think 100 out of 100 games with white, with Hikaru's 22 minutes. So the streak ends at 4. And what an abysmal game it was for our beloved Gukesh. Yeah, I imagine so, Kongor. I mean, again, it's, you know, I wouldn't have played this queen a8 move. It's hard to say when every move, if Hikaru plays a different move than me, I always have to adjust to what he's done, but he's used up time, and I didn't think about his move. But here's what I would have done. H takes g6, h6, f5, bishop c4. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter who I'm playing against. I could win like this with h takes g6 right here. I don't really understand or like queen a8 at the moment, but it should still be completely fine and winning. Yeah. Oh man, where did Gukesh go wrong? I mean, he just moved around in circles. He let white play rook e5. He let white put the queen. I don't know what queen a3. All these moves looked like they did nothing. This move did nothing. And he allows h5 in this position with none of these pieces challenged. Just makes no sense at all. I don't know. I think to some extent everything he did was was wrong for a while there. Like, let's just start here. He plays queen f6, allowing rook e5. I would play queen c5, offering the queen trade again. Right? White goes here. I would play queen here. I would never even allow rook e5. I just keep offering a queen trade. This was an hour and a half ago. What else could he do when Chess Gone Mad? Is he lost once he lets the rook on e5? Probably still not lost. Looks a bit tough though now, because white has now a direct threat of putting the queen on e4 and then playing h5, like in the game. So he stopped that threat for a moment because of queen takes c3. Hikaru was just wasting time with those king moves, huh? Then he plays the real plan. What on earth is queen b6 about? I guess to take that pawn. And then he just comes back. I mean, here this would be like maybe a last chance to play bishop d6 and challenge the rook. It has to choose between the e file and the fifth rank, right? If it stays on the e file, then you can come here and stop h5. If it comes off the e file, depending where it goes, then black might have an idea like here, rook e8, countering the file, thus breaking up the battery against h7. So like here, maybe bishop d6 would have been a last-ditch save. This is like a critical kind of position versus a position where everything was fine. But maybe here bishop d6 was still saving. Hang on, some moves from Fabi, etc. Fabi playing it kind of aggressively. I thought he might repeat with rook e8, queen f4, rook e4. So it looks like Fabi's now the one who's trying to play on here with black. With pawns on dark squares to block this bishop, his king can always ring around the rosy them and avoid perpetuals. And he wants to try to attack Arjun's king. So bishop d6, rook b5. Okay, interesting move. Well, that's a nice move. I don't know why this queen is over here. That's a very nice move. Rook b5, Ivan, yeah. Oh, and there's rook b8 too. Yeah, I like this rook b5 because it keeps the queen from re-centralizing somewhere logical. Very problematical. I don't see a great move for black here. What's happened in the game is they've traded on g6. In the game, folks, rook d8, queen here, trade. So as some people have mentioned, white could maybe win a pawn with bishop takes g6. Black probably couldn't take because of check and checkmate. That's more than just a pawn up rook endgame. There is a check here, maybe? Here? Check here? The queen's covering h1. That looks pretty strong. I don't know. It seems like maybe white could take that pawn. But white played queen c8. This is looking at basically checkmates, right? Check here, check. It's similar to the theme that I'd played in such positions before with something like king f2, right? Just trying to open up the queen to here. HG, queen c8. Has Gukesh found a move? Queen c5. So he's planning to answer queen h3 with queen h5. And against bishop g6, he still doesn't have rook g6 because of rook f8, h8. So against bishop g6, still not clear what he would do next there. So that's certainly a candidate move for Hikaru here. On the other board, queen creeps in. Chekaruski. Rook g1. King there. If queen d5, there's rook h4 check. Yeah, Teddy, I've never heard of that process, and I don't have any immediate quick comment on it. Okay, somehow I still feel like there's like a 2% chance that Gukesh gets out of this somehow. Maybe like a 2% chance. Maybe a 1% chance. It's not looking as bad as the worst position I saw for him, so I'm going to take my eval down slightly. It's almost over. That's right, Kurt. It's almost over. That's right, SB McManus. That last round game of the World Championship, yeah, I think I gave him somewhere between 0 and 1% to win that thing. It is possible to take G6 investing ideas, absolutely. In fact, Hikaru might have just done it. Let me have a quick look. Because he's just made a move. No, Bishop E4. Just covering all the bases. I think the idea is this king can never come here now because you have Bishop D5. Also, you could maybe play Bishop D5 before Queen H3, and then you'd block off this Queen H5 defense. So he comes here. There's going to never be this because of this. There is going to be this. Then he'll threaten here, and white will have to do something. Black will have to do something like Rook F5. But then he'd have Queen E6. Maybe King H7, King H6. You run then? Okay, here's the idea, folks. Oh, wow. Gukesh throws the G pawn. The pawn was dead anyway, right? So he throws it. Like, white could have taken it on G6 for the last 2 or 3 moves, so you just throw a little something at Naka. This is a little reminiscent, this position, of the final game from Wake on Zay this year. If anyone saw the Kamer versus Pragnananda game from round 13, Wake on Zay, 2025. Very similar. Kamer eventually checkmated the black king with the queen and light squared bishop. Even without the rooks on the board, just queen and bishop, he found a win in the end. G5. Yeah, I don't think Rook F8 works yet, Baymon, as you're saying. Even here, it's not 100% clear because we don't have the Bishop D5 to finish it. But you were saying Black could take with the Queen to cover one approach to the King, and then use the Rook for the other. And the King's looking pretty toasty, right? Not toasty like he's getting burned, toasty like he's cozy, right? Comfortable in his pawn structure. Okay, so Naka just takes the pawn. Black's probably going to get a check. You can't play Queen G5, I don't think, because of Rook F8, winning a bishop with check. 3 minutes for Gukesh. A dozen for Naka. Queen A7. Ugh. Arjun just keeps bringing his queen further and further out of the game. And it is clear that it is Fabi who's playing for more. I guess the main plan would be to bring this bishop back to E4. So then you can go, play moves like Queen F3, Rook E1, Rook E2. Yeah, this bishop and rook need to switch squares to put more pressure on white's game. And when white does, Arjun's going to take the A pawn to put a time limit on black's attack. But I know Fabi's only got 3 minutes, but he should be confident. His position looks great. Gukesh stacks the G pawn and then sits there without a follow-up. There's strictly nothing to be done here for Gukesh still. These pieces are just always tied to this. King G8 check seems to never help. In fact, once this rook moves, white can put the pawn on G6, which is very agreeable for white, locking in all this stuff. Queen F2, king here. Queen check, bishop G2. Still no move. Under a minute for Gukesh. I think he's going to play rook f2 eventually. Nope. King h3. Chess Gone Mad still feels a minuscule wisp of a chance here. Rook f7. Against bishop d5 here. There's queen f5, but even the queen trade's completely winning for white. So bishop d5. Queen f1, I guess. Right? Trying to make you go bishop back to g2 and then just queen f2 again for black. Okay. So, folks, just a little thing here. This move here, almost winning, but check. Forcing you to come back, and then just waiting around. Yeah, the point of queen f2 or rook f2, either move, Baymon, was to at least get the white king onto h3. That was the whole dream. Now there'd be like g6 or something. Okay, so in the game, rook f7 was played, and Hikaru plays g6. Yeah, the pawn's happy there. Rook here. Now, I mean, this would win if queens were off the board. With queens on the board, does he need to go like queen here to here maybe? He's played a move already. Queen g4. So the idea is check and mate. If queen f1, there's bishop g2. So each of the white pieces is doing their own job here. Looks like the moment he might resign, but Gukesh is a man who plays a lot of moves. So we get queen f1. I guess bishop g2, queen f5, rook f5, bishop d5 could be the end of the game. No, he's found something more. He wants queen check, queen here. And then he could eventually, if you play g takes h, he could go here. But this is completely winning. You give either check and then just move the bishop here and don't trade the queens. Hikaru gives the check, and now just bishop d5 to f7. This is a million plus a million. Any chance is gone, Chess Gone Mad. Bishop d5 from Hikaru. Easy peasy. Great moment to resign. Again, another great moment to resign. There have been a couple in the last 5 moves. No! Gukesh! No. Man down. Ooh. Arjun with a threat. And back to go. Well, sadly, my friends, I must adjudicate that as an abysmal game for my hero. The only thing it had in common with his other games is that he got a bad... is that he didn't know what he was doing in the opening. Hey, LGL, no celebrating. No celebrating. We're sad here. I'm kidding. Everyone should do their own thing. You celebrate and I'll cry together. Bye, LJL Chess. Enjoy your day. I don't know how much further our stream will go. We'll see what Fabi can come up with. It looks like his last move he played with 7 seconds on his clock. No! Stupid mouse. Looks like the last move he played with 7 seconds on his clock did Fabi, right? So I don't know how far he'll be able to push Arjun here. Maybe this queen should live on d7, where she controls some squares towards this side of the board. I'm not yet sure. Oh, is Fabi threatening to maybe take the pawn? Let's say I went check here, here. Would Fabi maybe grab my pawn? And I'd go here. Threatening checkmate. Well, you know me, Opfeshach. Not a patriot. Let's keep this queen honest. She remains honest. Let's try something cleverer. Check. Here. Here. This is a draw by perpetual, right? It's a basic pattern. All right. So I'm still in favor of my own instinct for Arjun of bringing this queen to d7. Maybe with or without the check on d8, but I feel like the queen should cover this side. No, with the check, with the check. Instead, we get rook to g1 again. Yeah, it was there before in a similar position, so Arjun believes in this setup, I guess. h5 from Fabi. Making an extra square for the king, maybe. Ooh. 3 minutes for Arjun, seconds for Fabi. There it is, queen on the light squares. Proust approved. All right, black defends all the pawns. I guess the idea would be to bring the rook here and then bring the bishop around. What on earth is Arjun doing there? Pawn takes pawn? Bishop takes? What? What's happening? Somebody tell me. If pawn takes, he was going to go rook a1 and counterattack? So violently? Oh my god. Did you guys see that? That happened really fast. Is this so scary? Because Fabi acted like he was terrified of this. Right? 3 seconds on Fabi's clock. Oh no, it's a 10-second increment. Okay, so he had like 23 seconds. That's a weird square to go to. In general, rook f2, bishop f2, queen f2, rook g2 looks fine for white. So he can just kind of plunk his queen wherever he wants. Somewhere or other. An interesting question, I guess, would be if this queen arrived on f4 and black traded it, would that endgame be dangerous for white? My feeling is it would be slightly dangerous, but I don't know. Queen's considering that square. Once this bishop's on e4, black will be threatening rook f2. And perhaps other things, so. Bishop e4 gets played. Arjun goes to f4. We're going to find out about this endgame. Now everybody can see why I was wondering about the endgame, right? Should I switch which board is which? We'll start them off at minus 0.5 here. Wait, he just took the c pawn. He didn't trade queens, huh? So we're going to have to put him at least at minus 1 then. Okay, he's trying for some desperate counterplay, but I mean, minus 1 is a pretty normal evaluation for a position where black's up that passed pawn on a6. White's now also split the pawns, weakening their own king. So this is desperate action by Arjun with g4. This is desperation. Queen g4 is going to attack the rook and prepare h5. But Fabi's already planned something. Throws in h5. All right. The fancy move. When he was thinking, I figured he was looking at this. I didn't see the point after bishop here, though. I just didn't see the point. There's bishop here. What's the point? All he did was get rid of his h-pawn with tempo. He keeps the two threats. If the bishop goes to d3, there's this. Queen h5. There's rook h3. Has Arjun found some kind of bamboozling, woozling thingamajig? Oh my god. Does anyone see a defense for Fabi? The queen takes rook? Was this h5 like just like a tactical shot? Everybody... Is this the end? A sudden swing for Chess Gone Mad's favorite player? The wild counterplay wins the game? That was incredible. That was incredible. It was just h5 was a knockout. Because there was going to be checkmate on g7, basically. Investing idea, asking why queen e3 didn't work. So here, or here, right? Queen e3. Because of this. But this is check and checkmate. So h5 was just a winning tactic right here. Check, hitting those pieces. I don't know if there was any hope in this move here. But I think basically his fear was his king's just completely open now. I don't know how much he did or didn't calculate here. Maybe even rook c1 is possible. Maybe he should have tried this. Because rook b1, rook b2, and rook c1, rook c2. It's not so clear the white has a win here. I mean, definitely a draw. Maybe Fabi just didn't see the tactic and thought he was still winning. So, you understand the reason he played h5 versus queen takes g4. Because after queen takes g4, you can go check, and then any move, and then queen h5, defending the bishop and the rook. That was Fabi's defense after g4, hg4, queen g4. So Arjun threw in h5 just to get rid of that pawn. Now when he checks and comes here, as seen in the game, there's no queen h5 to save because there's no h4 pawn. And otherwise, let's see, what's the other move? Queen d3 or c2 is what I've been thinking of before. Does he have a win against that? Doesn't look like it. Looks like that's just a repetition, you know, just a draw. So Fabi blundered it with queen e5, even worse, I think. Right? Does anyone see a win for white after queen d3? I mean, it could be messy, but queen h3, king g8, rook c1. I understand it's messy, but I don't think it's going to be a cold win. So he goes for queen e5, gets blocked. Now the queen can't defend the rook and bishop. All right, we're getting some more moves, folks. We're going to go to the game. Bishop takes, planning rook g7, queen e6, king h8, queen e8, king h7. Wait, how does it even work? Because you don't have queen h3 check with the king on h8. It's the same tactic that didn't work for the opponent before, right? So here, what? Oh yeah, this move first. Check first. Force the king up so there's no rook h7, then check and cover this. So we're gonna get the pawn trade basically into this endgame. Arjun playing quickly and confidently at the moment with the extra pawn. Just wants to win this one now. I think queen check does it. Just brings the king, though. That's pretty safe. There's like no moves for Fabi here. Wow. Wow, it looked like Fabi was about to win that game and maybe be majorly in the lead in this tournament, right? And now it's switching all the way to a loss? Threatening mate. Yep, that's the end, my friend. What a bloody day. Is it not a Sunday? It's not a Sunday. Oh my goodness. Well, Arjun got back the point that he gave Gukesh yesterday, I guess, right? His luck has, or karma or whatever, is evened out today from yesterday. Wow. Bloody. You see what happens when the games go forever, you know. Credit to Hikaru and Fabi and Arjun and Gukesh, the 4 people we watched today, for being, you know, pretty heavy fighters so far in this tournament through 8 rounds, I want to say. I feel like this is round 8 right here. Which would mean there were 2 left. I'll check if I'm right or wrong about that. Hikaru has 11.5 out of 26.5. That doesn't tell me how many rounds it's been. He's played, 13 rounds it shows. Come on. Okay, he's got 2 games left. It's round 8. I was right. So through 8 rounds and I think 9 days of Norway Chess, the players have... These 4 players here that we were just watching today have given us a great show, in my opinion. A great show. I'm going to do a quick review of some points in these games and compare the computer with what I thought during the game. I'm going to start with this Fabi game that's right here in front of me. So let's go way before all this. Okay. Give me some analysis. So knight e1, queen g6, knight d3. So here's something interesting. The computer's saying that black's better already, which partly explains why black didn't go for my bishop f5 move, but what's wrong with bishop f5? The computer says queen c1. I would take, knight e5, bishop e5, fe5, equal. Okay, so there was nothing wrong with bishop f5, but apparently there was nothing wrong with black's position, period. So Fabi just plays rook e8. The computer does say that Arjun should have played knight f4 here. It doesn't really know why he didn't do it. Computer still wants him to play knight f4 compared to knight b2, but not by much. The computer still says against knight f4, black just uses this plan of bringing the a-pawn towards a3, and it's slightly better to be black. Huh? Pretty interesting, right? So knight b2 takes. Would have been fine. Takes. Queen f4 would be better here. This move was weird. And now black's better after queen h5. That we sort of figured out. And black's just like way better throughout this phase. Okay. So what does that tell us? White wasn't better even with the knight on f4. the a5 plan for black was real. We mentioned it, but didn't realize like how real it was. There was nothing wrong with bishop f5, bishop d3. It was just that Fabi must have known his position was fine and wasn't in a rush to simplify like that. Because we can, as soon as we got into the opposite colored bishop position, we could feel that Fabi was trying to push it. So he must have already in his mind thought that he was ready to push it from that point on. And then I guess one other important point was right here out of the opening where this is the critical move of the game almost based on Arjun's time usage, right? If you look at Arjun's time usage, he thought here for 26 minutes and then played bishop d4. And the computer is telling me, indeed, his one big chance for an advantage here was to play this bishop a7 move, which we said would be complicated, but I thought I interpreted that that's where he sunk his time, was working on this move. And then b6, rook takes d5, bishop e6, huge complications. Rook d4, queen e7, going after the piece. And, oh man, and a key move for white that I didn't see coming, but you can easily imagine someone else not seeing it. Queen e4. He might not have found this move in this position. I feel like I did a pretty good job on bishop c6. Like, I was pretty comfortable with my calculations here, starting with rook d4, which the computer says is the only move. My calculations were, like, plausible here. But we didn't spend much time on bishop e6. I wasn't sure what would be correct here. And in this position here, I had looked at queen d3, h6, and thought black was kind of refuting what I was up to. And I looked at rook c4 and bishop takes b6 and wasn't convinced of that either. The only move to really have a good advantage for white is queen e4. And the point is, if queen a7, you have knight g5 threatening mate. And when they stop it, you can trade the bishop and then take here. And after queen e4, if black plays h6, there's another fantastic only move, which is the bishop escapes through b8 because you've set up the queens facing each other. So on rook b8, you have rook c4. It's precarious, but white gets away with it. Pearl 1267, black wants to play h6. So unless you have a brilliant idea of what you're going to do after h6, you are improving your opponent's position by playing rook h4. So queen e4, threatening knight g5 against queen a7, and against h6, bishop to b8 slipping out. Very, very hard to see. I can understand both spending a ton of time on this as white, feeling like maybe you can do it, and also not quite finding all the moves that you need to. The risk in taking that pawn is that you will completely lose the game after b6. But that would have been Arjun's main chance. So, Jesse would probably criticize him spending 26 minutes on this move. But, maybe if he'd spent 36 minutes on this move, he would have taken on a7 and won the game. You never know. I mean, at this level, sometimes you have to put a lot of time into a critical move, in my opinion. Okay, so that's that game. Intense. Now let's look at this Gukesh game. So first of all, we get to this position here, right out of the opening. And what on earth? The computer says this position is that terrible? That's an absolute shocker. Says this is a mistake. What? What's wrong if we just keep going around? The computer says the problem with my plan for black is that white is winning this endgame? Why is white winning this endgame? This is a shock. Here, keeping the king in, and white is winning this opposite colored bishop ending. So my whole plan of moving the queen around in circles, offering queen trades, to not give Hikaru time to play rook e5 and h5 in the middle game, would lose to simply a queen trade? Well, if that's the case, his position's dead from the moment he played f takes g6, right, Chess Gone Mad? Where does he play f takes g6? Okay, the computer's adorning it with a mistake. And saying, yes, play all the moves that he did. Now he spent 1,000,000 minutes on this move. The computer says rook f8 makes it even a little bit worse, but it's not doing anything that changes it. It says the best move is queen b6, queen b4. That still just looks lost. I'm not using a very strong computer here, so I'm inclined to say that f takes g6 was losing. What do you think, Chess Gone Mad? Did you have a stronger computer or not? Not quite dead yet? Really? The narrative is so much simpler if this is the losing move. I mean, this move looks so terrible, this FG6 move. It did blow my mind. And this is just equal. What was he up to? Such a weird move. Such a weird move. I was asked about my instinct during the game by some people. I don't know if they knew the answer, if they were just curious. But some people asked my instinct, you know, at the very beginning of this broadcast about this capture. And I said, well, for sure, h takes g6 is the logical move. You're trying to keep as many diagonals as possible closed. I don't know if I would have even thought about this move in a game. It's so quote-unquote obvious to me. I mean, here's like the crazy thing. Like Gukesh thought, no, I think his long think was on rook b8. But against white threatening mate in 1, I would have played bishop g6 immediately, and I would have played hg6 immediately. He was thinking about who knows what deep stuff here. But this was no bueno. This was all no bueno. Oh, man. So I guess to some extent nothing mattered that game. He was just always dead. Nobody knows how he came up with the idea of fg6 weakening this diagonal. Maybe he thought he'd have some counterplay on this file, but you know, g3 f4, there was never counterplay. White held the dark squares just fine with the pawn structure. Ay ay ay. Ay ay ay, Gukesh. What misery. Well, he's definitely had like the worst collection of positions out of the opening that we've seen in a long time from a player of this level. Not only is there not the World Championship afterglow of opening weapons in evidence, but I mean just miserable positions day after day after day. What do you mean, Chess Gone Mad? Where does Naka not need to trade? In the line from the game? You mean like where I was saying that I would just keep offering queen trades? You're saying Naka's not forced to trade? I understand that Naka can dodge around and not trade, but it just gives me something to do, you know? I just keep right? Whoop, doop, 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 doop. So I'm not really giving him time to play rook e5. I suppose he could like tuck his queen away somewhere on f3 or f2 to try and then play rook e5. But that might allow me to play queen d7, rook e8, if he really hides the queen away, right? Like, I just keep following her in circles, offering trades. And if she hides away, then eventually I can maybe challenge the e-file and offer a rook trade. So I think the real thing that's wrong with my plan as black was that trading queens is completely won for white. But I don't know that these players knew that. First of all, if he knew that, why would Gukesh have played f takes g6, going into a position where every queen trade loses? That seems odd, right? And then, I don't know, he did start by offering a queen trade here, right? You're saying the computer says that the queen could hide on b7 without being totally passive, and that would allow rook e5 instead of the queen c4 that Naka played. So then if I do this here, because your queen's still active, rook e8, there's still some losing something or other here. Something like this, huh? Okay, but queen b7's inhuman-ish, and Naka didn't play it anyway. But, I mean, I don't understand. I don't think Gukesh didn't play queen c5 because he knew the endgame was lost. I think he just didn't know what he was doing, period. Just end of sentence. He didn't know what he was doing. Yeah, Ivan. I'm with you. It's definitely surprising. If we want to set that up for a second more. Let's see this position. So you see the king can't get in, right? Yeah, the thing is, Chess Gone Mad, white doesn't need to take on f5. The point is, queen f5, it's like he's going to take on e4 next move, right? That's what I'm saying, right? Like queen f5, you know, white could play bishop c4. And I think we're now understanding that queen e4, rook e4 is lost, right? Or white could play, I don't know, you know, queen e7, queen f7, bishop c4. And this is winning for white, apparently, right? Now that we know the endgame. So I think this queen f5 move shows that Gukesh does not know that queen trades are losing. And I don't think Naka was planning on queen c5 to trade queens. I think he was planning to keep dodging around and keep playing. And if I remember when we had the computer on, it said, you know, queen e4 still holds a winning advantage. I mean, maybe queen a6 is still winning. Nope, that hangs the rook. Excuse me. Queen e4, queen f5. Maybe then, you know, you go queen f3 or queen here or something. But yeah, I mean, the computer is now saying, for example, queen e6 is completely winning. Even with the bishop not yet on c4. What's that? Okay. From the way they were playing at first here, I'm not sure that they knew that the queen trade was winning for white. Naka probably knew that he was much better, but he played the position very slowly. You know, king h3, king g2 6 times, you know, rook e5, then king h3, king g2 3 more times, right? Then h5. He played it like he was trying to wear Gukesh down, not like he saw that he was easily winning. That was my interpretation. But okay, the question we want to answer and that we can answer, we can't answer for sure what the two players were thinking, but we can answer this question from chat. about I don't understand why the queen trade is losing, right? So the king can't get out through here. So then the next question is, can the king get out with h6 and g5, right? There are situations where it's normal to not rush, so to speak, chess gone mad, but if you know you're just winning, sometimes you just play the winning moves. Naka used... You remember he had an hour and a half on his clock out of this opening here, right? And he got down to about 10 minutes. So he used an hour and 20 minutes on his clock. He didn't gain time by repeating. He was burning his own time and energy. If you think you're winning, I don't know. I don't think it's normal to hesitate the way he did. But again, we can't say for sure. So let's try and answer what we can figure out for sure, right? So h6 to play g5, right, would be one idea here. Now, white can lodge the bishop on g6, I would think, by coming here. If king h7, I'm going to guess that h5 is really brutal, right? So let's say they still go for this plan. We go hg, hg, fg threatening g6, bottling the king up. If the king wanted to get out, you'd have to have time for rook d8, g6, king g8, and now what we want to do is play check, check, and win this pawn. That'll be, right, 2 extra pawns, and the king still suffering a little bit. The computer says to play, I think, g6 for black here, just to get a little bit of space for the king. Now, we can't know for sure that this is winning for white as humans. Maybe even this computer engine doesn't know for sure. But we can certainly see that, you know, to lose 2 full pawns just to get the king out, it's obviously in the danger zone, right? It's the danger zone. So, I mean, if we give up on any plan of getting the black king out, do we want to understand why white can eventually win this position? Is that part of what we want? I guess you can centralize your king, bring the pawn to a5, uproot the bishop, put the rook on the 7th rank. White's up a piece. I don't know, that's like a stretch to imagine that white can eventually stretch black's defenses to the breaking point here. Black can never activate the rook because of back rank mate. Not just the king is trapped, but you can't even activate the rook because of back rank mate. Right? And if you ever play h6 as black, even with, I don't know if I should play like king f3 or a4, but I'll just put a move on the board so I can play h6 for black here. If you ever play h6 for black, without even the intent of getting your king out, but just to be out of back rank mate, so you could try and activate this. I think anytime you do that, white plays bishop d3, and the g6 square basically falls, right? If king h7, h5, if rook d6, they'll check you and force you to that square, and then play h5 again. So yeah. Ivan, you're saying when white plays a4, black can play a5, right? To hold that position. Where did I put that move in? Oh, I didn't play a4. I just played king f3 in the end, right? I didn't even play it. But yeah, eventually I would play a4. You can play a5, sure. Then the white king comes all the way up to c6. Bishop goes to, you know, d5 or something. And then white will play c4, c5 and break the construction. Because white has a full extra piece in the fight. There is always going to be a way to win with like a full extra piece like that. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's somewhat the answer to this, but I just didn't suspect it. I just didn't suspect it when they were playing the game. Partly some confidence in Gukesh, you know, that like if he played f takes g6, he must have had some kind of reason or thought around it. It couldn't be so completely terrible. And, you know, rook and bishop versus rook and bishop is usually very complicated compared to bishop versus bishop. But with equal pawns, it's fairly rare that it's completely lost. That's a surprise that that's just dead lost. But I see to get the king out of the body bag on the king side, you have to sack at least 2 pawns. So it makes sense to me now. I guess it was just that sometimes your assumptions and your structured way of thinking doesn't let you think, right? It doesn't let you see exceptions and interesting things. So I'm going to send a raid now, folks. I got to go take care of some errands. It was great to watch Norway Chess with you. I look forward to watching another round with you in another day or two. I don't know if there's a rest day tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get a better game at some point. Maybe if I send a raid to Chess24, you could see the interviews there. So let's try that. But yeah, this is definitely, to some extent, a textbook game on opposite colored bishop middle games. Chess Gone Mad saying that, yeah. Also a warning that the good old h takes g3 and h takes g6 are still good moves very often. You can't always play this weird modern f takes g thing and be like a hyper genius. Sometimes you're just being a good old idiot. All right. Take care, everybody. Be well, and I'll see you. Oh, I will see you tonight as well. For some of you, that's tomorrow morning. But I will be on tonight to do another episode of Endgame Sensei. All right, even before the next round of Norway Chess. All right, cheers. Oh, I'm being told their stream is over. Okay, let me find somewhere else to raid then. We'll raid Zefcat then. Does that work? Yeah.